Good evening. Is everybody is ready or you need more coffee and tea? Anybody need coffee and tea? Raise your hand. Wine? Okay. I see only Arabs here. Where is the others? Yemeni guys? Hello. So, basically we're starting now or we wait? We wait? 2-3 minutes? Okay, 2-3 minutes more. لم علينا عبيدك يا رب. No, my time is not running. Yeah. She knows better. My time is running now. Okay, good evening. This session is supposed to be, the topic is, as you can see, it's not there yet. It's about Arab Spring. Okay. Arab Spring and the aftermath. It's a little bit tricky name because the Arab Spring is still happening, in my personal opinion. My name is Ahmed Farag. I'm a human rights activist. I do a talk show in an Egyptian opposition TV channel, daily talk show. It's supposed to be funny and make you laugh, but I don't have enough time here. I'm just moderating. Because part of the things in the Middle East, that things are changing dramatically. In this session, supposed to have other people. A lady from Sudan, as there is a revolution, people in the streets fighting a military coup d'etat, she couldn't come because the military decided to stop the fighting and start some kind of a dialogue. And she was working for the UN, then it's impossible to come. And a Jordanian activist, and I will let our activist here, Mr. Gamal Salah from Jordan, the same country, both of them was coming in the same plane to tell you about him. Can we have the picture of Abdurrahman as he's not here? Sophia? Yes.
Yes, good evening. I am Jamal Salah from Jordan. I represent Rashid. Rashid is the Transparency International Jordanian branch and also represent the network of AIN. It's Arab Regional Network for Transparency and Integrity, Accountability. I will start with greeting to this colleague. He was with us in the airport. He's activist, political activist, and he is young. So his activities were always in participating and initiating demonstrations and protests, calling for human rights, calling for anti-corruption, and for all these developmental issues. And because of this, he was jailed several times, and he was released maybe 2 weeks ago. He was invited to come with us to this place before the time of travel. He approached the security departments, the intelligence department, and he informed them that he's traveling on this day to participate in this conference. Of course, upon negotiation and discussion, he made some promises to be more soft, let's say, and they allowed him to travel. So we were happy seeing him in the airport. We stamped our passports, leaving the country, and of course, we saw him with stamped passport, and he passed few steps, and we were happy that he was released. Now, after a few steps away from the passport cabinet, he was called back again, and he was taken to another place, And since then, we didn't see him, but we communicated over the telephone that he's detained in a place, in a room, without being discussed or without being questioned. But it was known. Then he was moved from room to another, from room to another, and they informed him at the end that he will be released to the plane. But this information that he will be released to the plane was in the moment that the plane was moving already on the airport. After that, they took him handcuffed and blindfolded with a military car to the intelligence department in Amman. He was kept there for a long time, and maybe in the early morning he was released. But he had to go on Sunday tomorrow for further investigation. He was obliged to sign some documents, and they asked him, he signed that he should not participate in protests or activities, and even he should not post anything in social media. So this is a situation where I can describe the title of this session, The Arab Spring Aftermath.
Thank you very much. You would like to tell us anything about the situation in Jordan in general?
Okay. Now, I like to tell you that the Arab Spring started in Jordan too early, not in 2011. It started in Jordan in 1989. At that time, the Jordanian dinar devaluated to 100% of the value. And I mean by that, the Jordanian dinar was equaling $3 for one Jordanian dinar, and at that time it was devaluated to $1.5. So this is already 100%. At the same time, the government increased the taxes. For example, my car in Germany, it's a German car, costs in Germany 17,000 euro, which makes 14,000 Jordanian dinar. I bought it from Amman for about 40,000 Jordanian dinar. So buying something in the country, you pay 3 times the value. Of course, salaries did not improve since more than 20 years. And everything, as you know, the prices were raised. Now, in 1989, it happened a huge uprising over all the country. But the thing in Jordan, let me admit that we never militarized, or we never in Jordan crushed the demonstrations. Our King Hussein at that time, he was a very smart politician, so he was always dealing with peacefully. So at that uprising, or the Arab Spring at that time, the government announced to return back to the parliamentarian life, and they established a new election law which was fair, and that election was really clean at that time. The Islamists won about 40% of the seats in the parliament, and they took the power of course, but that proved that Islamists, they have programs but cannot be implemented on the ground, so they didn't make any change if they were in power or out. So that parliament was really good. After that, the government started changing the election law, and it was devaluation of the election law since then. And since then, each 4 years, we have changes on the election law. In fact, it's backwarding, it's not forwarding. The government now, as I continuously changing the law, And we start seeing in the parliament people with bad reputation, bad past, bad information, low caliber of people winning in the parliament. For that, the people lost their trust in this process. And I can say that the percentage of participating people in the election in the last election was 7% only in Amman, and 29%.
7%.
7% in Amman. Amman is the capital, and Amman has 50% of the population. And it was 29% over the whole country. We start, now the government start buying the members of the parliament. Some of them are smugglers, well-known smugglers. We know them, everybody knows them. Some of them were arrested in breaking law in several issues: drugs, corruption, fake money, but they are still in power. Now, when the Arab Spring happened, I like to admit that the kingdoms, the Arab kingdoms like Jordan, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, reacted positively to the Arab Spring, and immediately they released freedoms, they changed some laws, increased salaries against the republics. As you know, all Arab republics, they crushed the demonstrations, and there were many casualties and, of course, severe treatment. But since then, as I mentioned before, there was some sort of freedom of expression, freedom of opinion. People write on social media. Journalists were always free to write whatever. Now, after this, since 2016, I would say, things dropped back, and now we don't have the freedom. People are arrested. They even raid houses at night to arrest activists. But those, for example, smugglers or criminals, they are not detained. They can be presented to court while they are still at home. Or the government close eyes and they don't even follow them. So this is the situation as in the Arab Spring in Jordan right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will go to Iraq. My friend Majid Al-Zubaydi, he's going to speak in Arabic, and I'm quickly try to translate for him. So basically the question about the situation in Iraq, now you have a revolution in 2019, and you still do some demonstration every now and then. And I can see you had good elections. The last election was a good elections, but things are not stable. Why is that?
مساء الخير جميعا. اسمحوا لي أن أتحدث باللغة العربية من أجل أن أخذ مساحة ومرونة أكثر.
Good evening, everybody. I'm so sorry I need to speak in English and in Arabic, as this has given me more freedom to express my opinion.
شكرا للدعوة وشكرا لك أستاذ أحمد على هذه الدعوة.
Thank you very much for the invitation by Point, and thank to the moderator, which is me.
أنا مجيد الزبيدي من منظمة أبناء النازحين، وأحد منسقي تظاهرات من 2013 حتى ثورة أكتوبر.
My name is Majid Al-Zubaydi. I am one of the key organizers of the demonstrations since 2000, from 2015 till 2019.
أنا الآن أسكن في مدينة اسطنبول في تركيا. غادرت العراق بعد تعرضي لعملية اغتيال في ثورة تشرين.
Now I'm living in Istanbul in Turkey because I had to leave Iraq as there was an operation of assassination, personal assassination, real assassination, not character assassination, after the demonstration in 2019.
إذا أردنا نتحدث عن العراق وما بعد الربيع العربي، لكن هناك ملاحظة أن التظاهرات بالعراق بدأت قبل الربيع العربي في 2008 و2009 في وسط وجنوب العراق بسبب نقص الخدمات.
If we wanted to speak about the Arab Spring, I have to mention that the demonstration in Iraq starting early before 2011, specifically in the south of the country for lack of services and lack of good governance.
لكن لا يخفى على أحد أن العراق يتأثر بالمنطقة الإقليمية والمنطقة العربية من حيث التأثيرات السلبية والإيجابية، ولهذا الربيع العربي كان مؤثر بشكل واضح بعد 2011، وكذلك العراق التحق بسلك التظاهرات 2011.
But because there is a domino effect in the whole Arab region, Iraq was part of the demonstration. When the demonstration started or the uprising started in Tunisia and Egypt, then also in 2011 they started some demonstration in South Iraq.
لكثرة المشاكل التي تجتاح البلد، التظاهرات بين فترة وأخرى تتغير الأهداف. مثلا في 2011 كانت التظاهرات من أجل فسح مجال أكبر لحرية الصحافة والتعبير عن حقوق الإنسان.
We use demonstration as a tool to address different agendas and different topics. One, in some specific time, we've been using demonstration just to ask for more freedom of expression and more freedom of media.
بينما تظاهرات 2013 اللي أنا كنت منسق في محافظة ميسان كانت ضد امتيازات وأعضاء مجلس النواب والدرجات الخاصة.
Part of the demonstration 2013, which he was the main organizer, was specifically against the extra privilege parliamentarian is receiving. And if extra privilege means that one parliamentarian can get 30 bodyguards, and he have the budget for 30 bodyguards, and he pay them. So the government pay the parliamentarian, and the parliamentarian pay for his bodyguards $1,000 every month. أنا شرحت بس حكاية
أنا فاهمك.
أوكي.
لكن بعد مظاهرات 2015 16 17 18 كانت كل هذه من أجل نقص الخدمات، الكهرباء والماء والشوارع إلى آخره.
Demonstrations since 2013 till 2019, and they have every year demonstrations specifically for lacking of services, lacking of water, lacking of electricity. Iraq, one of the biggest country in the world producing oil, but till now, electricity is cutting all the day over.
طوال مدة التظاهر من 2011 حتى 2018 كانت مطالبة بالحريات والحقوق والخدمات، ولم تكن هناك تحديات كبيرة ضد الناشطين والمنظمات المجتمع المدني، على الرغم أن منظمات المجتمع المدني لم يكن لها أثر أو مشاركات واسعة في التظاهرات، لكن كانت تدار التظاهرات من قبل ناشطين وشخصيات اجتماعية.
Most of this demonstration was running by activists, cadre of family groups. It was a little bit away from NGOs and civil society. Later on, NGOs and civil society and this independent activist joined together.
طوال تلك المدة عملنا مجموعة من التنسيقيات في كل محافظة منسقية معينة، وعملنا مجموعة مؤتمرات آخرها في مدينة ميسان، المؤتمر التاسع.
Since October 2019, we started to grassroots our activities and to build organization in every governorate. So the revision started using the same techniques, same methodologies, asking for the extra stuff or extra topics.
طوال هذه السنوات الضغوطات الحكومية والتحديات الحكومية سواء من قبل الحكومة الاتحادية أو المحلية أو من قبل الأحزاب والميليشيات كانت ضعيفة، أو إلى حد ما يعني ضايقت بعض الناشطين، وانخطف حوالي 5 أشخاص ولم نعرف مصيرهم لحد اليوم.
Well, there is many wolves in Iraq. It's not only the government like in Egypt, for example, or Jordan. In Iraq, you have different power is divided among centralized government, local governments, political groups, political parties, and militias. Each religious leader have his own militias. So the crackdown on the Iraqi activists is coming from different aspects. The first crackdown was total disappearance of 5 activists in all the country.
طوال تلك المدة هناك تنبيهات وتقارير تسرب من الأجهزة الأمنية والميليشيات تكتب ضد الناشطين، لكن لم تمارس لا الحكومة والميليشيات القمع التي حدث بعد 2019.
In the beginning, it was just a news reports doing a character assassination, but no actions happening against activists.
أكتفي بعدين نكمل لو
كمل.
نشأة ثورة تشرين.
خش على ثورة تشرين.
لكن بعد 2019 ثورة تشرين كانت بأسلوب جديد ومطالب جديدة، الجزء الأكبر منها كانت سياسية.
But the revolution of October 2019, we used a total different methodologies, we used total different techniques, and also we have more political agenda than local agenda. And with the political agenda, he means
ثورة تشرين بصراحة ليس كما يقول الكثير من السياسيين والباحثين والأكاديميين إنها كانت صدفة، بل كانت هي تظاهرات تراكمية.
it was a build-up activities till the point that we came to this revolution.
كانت المطالب هي تغيير الدستور،
Our political agenda was changing of constitution,
إجراء انتخابات،
making a new elections,
حصر السلاح بيد الدولة،
making sure that only the state have the guns and the militias, not the militias. So controlling the guns in the country by the state only.
تغيير مفوضية الانتخابات وقانون الانتخابات.
Changing the election body which is running the election every time.
ولهذا بما أنه كانت المطالب سياسية كانت ردة الفعل قاسية تجاه المتظاهرين.
When the agenda was local, the situation was different. When the agenda became more political and was focusing in all the country, a constitution, all this stuff, the reaction and the consequences was so violent by everyone.
بدأت التظاهرات في 1 تشرين حتى 7 تشرين في الوجبة الأولى، وأعطينا أكثر من 110 شهيد.
And we started the demonstration 1st of October till 7th of October. We lost 110 murders. 110 people was put down by shotguns, killed.
توقف التظاهرات يوم 7 بسبب مناسبة زيارة الأربعين للإمام الحسين.
We stopped the demonstration on the 7th because of Shia's religious ceremony. And then
بما أن التظاهرات في وسط وجنوب العراق الأغلبية الشيعية في احتراما لهذه الطقوس، توقفت التظاهرات وعادت في دعوات يوم 25 تشرين.
Because of most of the population of the south and the center and the south of Iraq is Shias, demonstrator agreed that we stop the demonstrations because of the religious ceremonies. But once the religious ceremonies was done, we stopped.
تفاجأنا يوم 25 تشرين بأن الزيادة القمع ضد المتظاهرين كان بشكل كبير ومخيف، وخصوصا من قبل الميليشيات.
It seems that after the religious celebration, which is all the Shias and all the militias and all the leaders is participating in, when they went back to the streets, the crackdown was much harder and much violent.
أعطينا أكثر من 800 شهيد و25,000 جريح، بينهم 5,000 معاق.
We give more than 800 murder, 800 people was killed, 25,000 was injured, 5,000 of them are handicapped.
ومن بين هؤلاء كان زميلنا وصديقنا في شبكة عين الشهيد أمجد الدهامات.
But one of them was one of our colleagues in Ain Arab Network, as Jamal mentioned. he was assassinated, Amjad Dahmat.
استطعنا بعد ذلك من خلال شهر ونص على من تمكين الهدف الأول هو إقالة رئيس الوزراء عادل عبد المهدي.
But we managed, after 1.5 months in the street, to get the goal number one, which is bringing the prime minister out of the power. He resigned.
حيث كان متهم بتوجيه عمليات القمع من قبل مكتبه الخاص.
It was very obvious that his personal office, not his public office, was the one office running this assassination activities.
للأسف الحكومة تعاملت ويانا يعني بعدائية كبيرة، ولهذا يعني وجهت الميليشيات التابعة للأحزاب التشكيلات الغير حكومية لقمع التظاهرات.
When the government, prime minister, was out of the power, the political groups was giving orders to the private militias to crack down on the demonstration. So no official uniforms anymore, just group of people who's having guns.
فتعرضنا لعمليات القتل والخطف والتهجير والسجن.
When I say guns in Iraq, I don't talking about pistols. This guy is using doshka. If you know the terminology of doshka, it's a Russian military weapon. It's a thick tool and heavy tool, killing many peoples. And since then, since the militias started to crack down on demonstrations, thousands of people have to leave their homes. One of them is him. Thousands of people had to flee a little bit time away, and it was a huge crackdown.
للأسف الحكومة الجديدة بقيادة مصطفى الكاظمي لم تكن موفقة بتحقيق الشروط الذي وضعتها على عاتقها.
When the new government came to the power, they take this political agenda and they says, yes, we are going to develop this political agenda and we are going to adapt it. We are going to do what the people ask. But they never did.
كان هناك واجبين على الحكومة الجديدة: إقامة انتخابات مبكرة وحسم ملف الشهداء وحالة القتل إلى المحاكم.
After all this bloodbath, the new government was taking into the shoulder two main topics. The first topic is to run a new elections. The second topic is to start to do accountability for the blood of everyone was shared in this revolution.
إضافة إلى تعديل قانون الانتخابات وتبديل المفوضية.
Also changing the election law and changing the election organization.
لكن بالحقيقة المفوضية تم تبديلها، ولكن حسب المحاصصة بين الأحزاب، والقانون فصل على طريقة الأحزاب.
Well, they changed, but not the best way the people want.
كذلك الانتخابات لم تكن مبكرة، بل كانت قبل موعدها بحوالي 7 أشهر، فهي لم تكن مبكرة.
The election was not early. It came in the end, but a little bit late.
إضافة إلى ملف الشهداء وقتلتهم ركن على جانب.
The murders, the people who was injured, the people who became handicapped, this topic the new government didn't touch.
النقطة الأهم، لا زالت تحديات موجودة على كثير من الناشطين، سواء المبعدين المغتربين في دول مثل لبنان والأردن وتركيا وشمال العراق.
The aftermath, and specifically in Iraq, and the challenges that we have thousands of activists who is in diaspora in Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, North Iraq.
إضافة إلى الناشطين في الداخل الذين لا يستطيعون الخروج من العراق بسبب ممكن ضعف مالي، لا يتحملون الغربة إلى آخره.
But still, there is thousands of activists in Iraq who cannot leave, mostly because of financial consequences, or they still have things to do in the country.
وبما أن لا حكومة عبد المهدي السابقة ولا الحكومة الجديدة نفذت المطالب، أنا أعتقد سوف تكون هناك أكتوبر ثانية وثالثة.
As the new government didn't fulfill all the promises, I think there is going another round of demonstration in Iraq. Now we're moving from Iraq to Syria, but thank God he can speak English. So, Bassam Al-Ahmed, I met him when he was much younger. I was training him on personal security and internet security to fight, to go back to Syria and fight. He was media personnel in that time, and to fight Al-Assad. I trained 100 of them undercover, and only one died. So, thank God.
Thank you very much. My name is Bassam Al-Ahmed. I'm leading a Syrian organization called Syrians for Truth. Can you hear me well? Yes. My name is Bassam Al-Ahmed. I'm leading a Syrian organization called Syrians for Truth and Justice. We mainly documenting the human rights violations by all parties of the conflict in Syria. I'm very glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation. But also I'm sad to see that our only woman or lady colleague was not able to join us. If someone now take a photo, then maybe some people on social media understand that we are all men. So I'm sad to hear that there is no woman here so far. The notion of the organization Syrians for Truth and Justice came in 2015 to our mind. We tried to cover the violation by all parties of the conflict in Syria, because we know in the beginning there was only one party doing the violations in Syria after the what's so-called Arab Spring or the Syrian uprising. It was the Syrian government, Bashar al-Assad regime. Late 2011, in the beginning of 2012, many other groups joined the conflict, and it was officially recognized by ICRC that it's an internal conflict in Syria. So this led me to talk about the current situation in Syria. Now, mainly the country divided between two main four powers. There is like areas controlled by the Syrian regime or Syrian government, which mainly supported by Russia and Iran. In the northeast part of Syria, controlled mainly by the Kurds and Syrian Democratic Forces, which mainly supported by the international coalition and the US-led coalition. In northwest Syria, there is some area controlled by the opposition, which mainly linked and supported by Turkey. And there is still small left part of Idlib controlled by the Hayat Tahrir Sham, HTS, which categorized by the international organization as a terrorist group. Yeah, I don't always use this word because I feel it's just like more a political word, but this is how they describe this group. So I'm saying that because as human rights activists or as people working on the civil society domain, we're dealing with the four systems inside Syria. So if we are speaking from the perspective of human rights, like people, we are fighting four main powers inside Syria, because all parties of this power, they are violating or doing the violations against own people. And the last report by the Commission of Inquiry in Syria, the title was No Clean Hands. They said, documented the violation mainly by the Assad regime, but also by other parties supported by Turkey and other parties. So only two quick points. Then I can just like also take some questions about, I think the biggest mistake Syrian activists or the Syrian politicians in general did, and I hope our colleagues in Jordan, Iraq, other will not repeat these mistakes, that in the beginning they gave their decisions to the other, like other foreign countries. And this is not secret, of course, when we say that in the beginning there was many countries involved in the Syria conflicts: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Emirat, Turkey, and then Russia and Iran came, and then the US coalition. Now, this is my personal opinion. I think, and many other people can agree with that we are living in a proxy war. It's no more a Syrian war. It's a war on the Syrian land. The tool is Syrian. They are using Syrian people to do some, like they fight, killed each other, but most of the agenda, it's international agendas. I hope that other countries in the Arab world and other countries will not repeat this. I think we should stick with the demands of the people. We should lead the demonstration and not allow any foreign parties or power to take our decision, because it's our cause. Of course, it doesn't mean that we will make all countries our enemies. Of course not, but we should always distinguish between what we want as Syrian for, like, when it's come to the democracy, citizenship, to rebuild our country, and what other foreign countries want. Because if you just give them your decision, then they will do a compromise for themselves, but they will use you. Please don't repeat this mistake, and just like stick with your own people demands. Thank you.
So now we're going to take questions. We still have 15 minutes and one round of reactions. I can see one hand is already there.
Hi, I'm Krenoir. I come from Kosovo. Very good discussion, productive and interesting. I'm curious to know, I had the opportunity to see a documentary which was published by Deutsche Welle, and it was about the democracy taking root after the revolution in Tunisia. It was a broader topic, but the example was Tunisia. And the journalist was asking different people about their reaction towards how the new political system is working after the dictatorship. So, and many people reacted very negatively. Now, according to my belief and to my knowledge regarding political systems and democracy and dictatorship, if a society ruled for many years under dictatorship, has a revolution and leans towards a democratic system, in order for the democratic system to get rooted in the society, it needs, I don't know how many years, but I believe at least 50 years. You cannot have consolidated democracy in 1 year. It's impossible. And many people have high expectations from democracy. They have they feel very happy after the revolution. They think that when democracy comes, it will be like in Switzerland in 1 year. So they get very immediately upset. And it creates a quick negative reaction towards democracy. And many people conclude that, no, democracy is not working, this is bad. Do you, as activists, how do you work with the society in the Middle East of telling them that democracy, in order to be established, it needs at least 50 years or hundreds of years. It cannot be in few years. I think this is the main topic that the people of the Middle East should discuss. And the other thing, please, because it's very important about Iraq. I wanted to ask the guy from Iraq, how is it going with I know Iraq, after the invasion in 2003, has gone towards tremendous political changes, and now it's a democracy, even though it's in the first stages of democracy. How is the people in Iraq feeling about the new political system? Do they feel that they are going in the right direction, or that the system is not working? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was translating your question. Any more questions? I can see one hand there. معلش يا حجي.
Thank you. My name is Stipe Odak. I work at the Université Catholique de Louvain in Belgium. For those of us who work in the sphere of political science and follow the events in your region, could you name some major or most important misconception that you see about the Arab Spring and the aftermath among people outside? And the second, to what degree you feel that the political problems and future between those countries are entangled? So obviously the situation in Jordan cannot be disconnected from the Palestinian refugees and then consequently Israel-Palestinian question. To what degree are all these countries interconnected? Thank you.
Thank you. I can see Tariq also have a question.
Hi, my name is Tariq Radwan. I also wanted to ask you, because technology played a huge role in 2011 and 2019, and now in sort of the 10 years in the aftermath of this, how has the role of technology changed since these uprisings, since the demands and maybe lack of response to these demands has happened?
Thank you. So we still have 10 minutes. I will ask Jamal to answer some of the questions. About the Kosovo and Iraqi question, this guy, he was fighting, when he was young, he was fighting the Americans. The same generation was fighting the Americans with guns, is the same generation was asking for democracy. There is no contradiction.
Let me start with the last comment from Tariq. I think the social media, the technology, the IT, we have now, as in any other country in the world, we have the new generations, the young generations are really smart in using these machines and this technology. It spread also the awareness and the capacity, but also in the same time, it was very helpful, and it is very helpful, I mean the IT, for the dictatorship governments and the security and the police to follow the activists. So it's easier than earlier. This is what I say on the IT. Now, coming back to the situation of the Arab Spring, the government in Jordan, as I said before, was very flexible with the demonstrations, and it was the only country, Jordan, the government supported these demonstrations. Even they guarded them, they opened the road for them, they distributed water, juice, and in one of the days there was heavy rain, was announced as demonstration, and the government distributed even umbrellas to the demonstrators. Now, after that, what happened in Syria, for example, we all witnessed what happened in Syria at the beginning, in Egypt, Libya until now, Tunisia, Yemen. So our government started promoting that, calling for democracy, resulting in the situation like in Syria. So it's better that we accept our life as is. We are enjoying security and safety, and that should be enough. And those who are demonstrating against for democracy and for others, those are trying to demolish the country. My last point about the human rights. Now, I can remember the president of Egypt, the current president of Egypt, when he received Macron in Cairo. So Macron was claiming the human rights are not up to the standard in Egypt. The president, Sisi, said, look, you have different situation like ours. The standards in Europe is different than the standards here. So people in jail means something, and people in jail in Egypt means another thing. So please keep us dealing with our human rights different than yours. And this is a justification of a politician, a president. Thank you.
Thank you.
بصراحة هذا السؤال يحتاج كثير من الوقت، لكن أنا سوف أحاول أن أختصر جدا.
Actually, your question needs a lot of time, but he will try to use the time very wisely.
وإذا يحب أنه ممكن في وقت آخر نتحدث بها.
And also, there is a plenty of time after the session, both of you directly discussion. I can also facilitate the translation.
الأمريكان جاءوا للعراق ليس محررين وليس من أجل الديمقراطية، بل جاءوا لأمور منها سياسية واقتصادية.
The Americans, when they came to Iraq, they didn't came as a liberator, they didn't came for democracy, they came mainly for economical reasons.
وأنا كنت واحد من المعارضين لهذا الاحتلال وعملت في الجناح المسلح ضده.
And I was against this, and I was raising arms against the occupation of the United States of America to his country.
الأمريكان بصراحة أزالوا نظام البعث ونظام صدام وحطموا البلد.
They managed to remove al-Ba'ath, the dictatorship, Saddam Hussein, the dictatorship, but they also demolished the whole country.
الأمريكان جلبوا معهم لصوص للأسف على شكل أحزاب ومكنوهم من السيطرة على البلد.
The Americans, when they came, they brought thieves, and they created out of these thieves political parties, and this political parties is the political parties which is control the country right now.
ولهذا الأمريكان تفاجؤوا بالرفض الشعبي من الشمال في المناطق الغربية والوسط والجنوب، وبدأت المقاومة في 2004.
As long as the American bring Shias and Shias leader, they was quite surprised that there is a public rejection for this leadership, specifically in the Shias part of the country, the center, the south, and the east. The west.
إضافة إلى تفاجؤوا هم، يعني أنا أعتقد واحدة من سياساتهم محاصرة المد الإيراني في المنطقة العربية، لكن للأسف التغلغل الإيراني زاد بعد الاحتلال.
One of the American policies they wanted to implement in Iraq is to stop the Iranian influence in Iraq. Actually, the consequences was the Iranian influence in Iraq was more higher.
والتمدد الإيراني يعني حسب وجهة نظري أخطر من الاحتلال الأمريكي الآن.
And from his point of view, as Shias, as Iraqi Shias, he thinks that the Iranian influence in Iraq is more dangerous than American occupation to Iraq.
عندما كنا نواجه الاحتلال الأمريكي يعني بالجانب المسلح، ممكن أن نرجع إلى بيوتنا وننام مستقرين.
When we've been fighting the Americans with guns, it was very easy for us to go back home and sleep, no problem.
لكن الآن لا نستطيع أن نتحدث، وليس نواجه الإيرانيين، لا نستطيع أن نتحدث، ويعني من كثر ما تحدثنا على إيران أنا واحد من الناس هجرت إلى اسطنبول.
Now we are Shias, we are activists, we cannot even talk about the Iranian influence in our country. Even talk. And because of using the demonstration as a tool, he cannot go back home, and he is living in Istanbul, Turkey.
طوال تلك الفترة كانوا يراقبون تحركاتنا وسفرنا ومشاركاتنا بالورش، حتى صار يعني أنا بعد ما جيت البوسنة 2016 يمكن 2017 أو 18 وزير الداخلية صرح قال إن الناشطين يذهبون إلى البوسنة من أجل أن يتدربوا على استخدام السوشيال ميديا من أجل تأجيج العنف.
When he participated in POINT 2016, the Ministry of Interior in Iraq said that Iraqi activists coming to Bosnia using social media to crack down the system.
وشكرا.
That's it for now. We go to Syria back.
Very quick comment about my colleague here said regarding the expectation, and we should tell people that it will take time. Yes, but if the whole process in the right track, I think one of the problem is that like people in general, they linked the corruption, the dictatorship to some people, some like in Syria, they only linked to the person of Bashar al-Assad, which is not totally wrong, but other people, some people was in the opposition side of Bashar al-Assad, but they have the same mentality. So I think what we should tell people about that, democracy take time, but also we should tell people that they should focus on the project and values. What are the shared values? Are we supporting the opposition who will build a democratic country, a citizenship for all Syrian, or they just want to replace a dictatorship with other dictatorship? And I think this lead me to the other comment about misconception and the mistake by the mystics by the Western country that maybe I think they didn't understand the context very well. And sometimes they supported people that they were in behaviors no less worse than Bashar al-Assad. Last, regarding the technology, we are at Syrians for Truth and Justice, one of the organizations using a technology a lot in documenting human rights violations. We collect the evidence from the open sources, but in the same times, as we say in Arabic, it's like a sword with two sides. We use this like technology and like open sources, but also at the same times, many times the technology create an environment for fake news, and it mislead us also in our investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to finish this quickly, but there is last three remarks. One remark is about technology and using technology. In my phone, we use encryption, definitely. But there is Signal, if everybody knows Signal. If you have Arab activists, you will find most of them have the sign of Signal because they donated for Signal, because they get better service from Signal. Other activists from all over the world don't donate. So we pay the Arab to protect you, the Syrians. This is one. Second, I've been running sessions in different conferences since .5, .4, .3, and mainly it's about the Middle East. Here, and I'm expecting that I'm going to be here, if I didn't die myself, for the next 5 and 10 years, because none of all this open topic was solved. And this part of the world is the most youth part of the world. We have a huge demographic changes, millions of young people who want to live freedom, democracy, and freedom of speech, freedom of religion, who wants to live the international standard of human rights. Unless this is happening, unless a young farmer in Iraq have normal electricity as you have here, or in Paris, or in Washington, there is no rest. It's not because this is my agenda or them agenda, because they are wanted to have a better future. This is a human need. Human need became a political agenda. Yeah, you can clap your hand. Thank you very much, but I promise you, Arab uprising will continue uprising till changes will happen in the Middle East, maybe in the world. And the good thing that the Islamist is losing also with the dictatorship. So we have time. Thank you very much for coming, and see you soon.